Hello everyone. This is the 18th part of the story Game of Thrones, the Prideful one. Chapter 86. Jon and Ned argued for hours to no end about their little problem, while Oberyn and I passed the time in one of the rooms outside trying to avoid the altercation, waiting patiently for both wolves to stop arguing. I knew they needed some alone time, ergo why I had been playing with Oberyn different games for the last 5 hours. You are unbelievably good at this game, Oberyn commented, moving one of the pieces. Thanks, I smiled, moving my queen to checkmate him. Once again I have lost, Oberyn sighed. While I love being destroyed in every single game we play, don't you think those two had enough time to deal with this? Maybe, I don't really know, they need to work things out themselves, I shrugged as I set the pieces back in place in the chessboard. I suppose, well I already lost 50 games, Oberyn chuckled. I don't think losing 50 more will make my self-esteem go any lower than already is. Oh come on, it's not that bad, I chuckled. Who in their right mind would play if they knew defeat was their only path, Oberyn said, and well, he had a point, he had been losing since we got here. Fair enough, I conceded, as if in cue Jon entered the room, his eyes red from what I assumed was all the crying he did. Well? I inquired. Please tell me you two solved this. Oberyn inquired with a bored expression. I will kill someone if you said you didn't, and I already tried with Ronald and that's impossible, so that leaves you and your father, Oberyn said in a playful manner, but I couldn't be too sure, he was unpredictable at times. I'm sorry for the way I behaved my king, Jon apologized, probably for the way he shouted at me a few hours ago. Apology accepted, I smiled as Ned Stark entered the room behind him. We are ready to talk about the walkers, Ned Stark informed us. I had the two wolves for a second wondering if I should try and see if they fixed their shit up, before realizing I didn't care if they patched up or not, I wasn't a family counselor or something. Very well, I nodded. Finally, Oberyn smiled, happy to do anything but play games with me. There wasn't much to discuss about the White Walkers and how to deal with them, because the plan was still the same. I would put the 7 kingdoms under one banner and face the long night of winter with humanity. No, with the living as one, only then we would have a chance against the others. A part of me was confident I could face this challenge like I had done before with other challenges, but another part of me knew I could still lose. It wasn't a single man I was facing, but an army that doesn't slow down, an army that is fearless and has nothing to lose. I was but one man, against a monster, but I would have to find a way to win, for my kids, for my wife. I didn't care about anything else but ensuring they survived. I'm ready to be turned into the Watch, Jon said with determination. Well, too bad that ain't gonna happen, I sighed. You are part of almost extinct house, you are needed elsewhere. I made an oath, Jon said, making me wonder how the hell someone so stupid survived this long. I'm the king, and I get to decide if that wall gets you or not, I said with a tone that depicted that I wasn't leaving any rooms for arguments. You are Jon Targaryen, the Lord of House Targaryen, you are needed on the living Jon, and you know it, we will face the long night, and we need every man. I'm not fit to be a lord, Jon said with his head low. No one really is, this game fucks with your mind, believe me I know, I chuckled, as I poked him in the forehead, but we do the best we can, and I know you will. Now, stop whining, get your lordy pants up and shut up. Jon Targaryen was about to start with the same repeated line about how he made an oath and blah blah, but a simple glare was more than enough to silence his whining. I will fight for the living, as one of your lords my king. Besides, the Watch won't be complaining too much, of that you have my word, I smiled. My plan was simple, to buy their compliance with gold or men. I'm sure they would happily let Jon go if they got better equipment or more men. Of course this plan could still fail, in which case I would use force to subdue them, so I suppose I will see when the time comes. You won't kill them, right? Jon inquired with a worried expression. Oh God, no. I hummed deep in thought. I'm down either way, Oberyn commented with a happy smile. There won't be any killing, Ned Stark said entering the conversation. While very rare and uncommon, it's not impossible to get out of the Watch, especially if you have a king on your side and the commander doesn't complain about it, which I doubt he will, so you practically have your freedom back already, son. Well, that settles that, I smiled. Sansa Stark point of view. Ronald was different, more mature, more handsome, and more frightening. I wonder what kind of things he has gone through to be how he is today. Father always said, war changes a man, I suppose it's true, and if I know him like I think I do, he must be doing almost everything by himself, which most have him on a constant edge. But it didn't matter how much he had changed, because deep down he was the same guy that changed my life, saved my family and showed me that life was more than following my role. Ronald sure looks awesome, Arya said as she practiced with her new rapier. I wonder how strong he is. Well, he has yet to lose a battle, I giggled. I read the Dothraki only follow the strong, and that the Khals must be undefeated to rule. And he has the biggest Khalasar in history, right? Arya inquired excitedly. Yes, I nodded. Then I have to train extra hard if I want to be his best warrior, Arya smiled, as she continued with her training. I'm sure he will be delighted to hear that, I smiled at my little sister. Catelyn's stark point of view. Fear was the main emotion I felt when thinking of Ronald now. I was afraid of him, his eyes promised me death should I cross him again. I had never seen such a monster before. He wasn't the young man I had met years ago, nor the bear of the stories that came across the sea. No, he was a monster, a very dangerous one. Please gods, guide me, I prayed, as I begged the seven to help me. Ronald point of view outside Winterfell. After a long day of seeing two grown men cry, I decided to go out for a walk, to cool my mind off. Working every day of the week can be quite taxing, and walking does wonders to a troubled mind. Hello, a cold icy sharp voice said, startling the crap out of me. With my sword out, I turned around fast like a thunder to notice that the voice came from a raven, but this wasn't one of my ravens. No, this one was clearly dead, or at least it should be, because it was showing its empty ribcage with no organs, that the fact that his eyes were glowing blue pretty much gave that shit away. You are? I inquired, knowing the answer myself already. A dead talking bird only meant one thing, the fucking Night King. You know. The bird said in an emotionless tone, I came here to warn you, to tell you, you won't win, no matter how many men you gather, or how many monsters you tame in the end, you are alone, child. And whether you want to admit it or not, there is only darkness and death awaiting for you and your people. No victory is truly assured, I glared at the bird. A moral sentiment, that doesn't apply to me, for I will command an unstoppable army that will lay waste on the living until every light in this world has been extinguished. The raven said with somehow an even colder tone that I could swear made the temperature drop a bit. I will stop you, so don't get your hopes too high, I said with determination. You are strong, Ronald, that much is true, but I am beyond strength, I beyond the living. I am the end, and I have come for all of you, and there is nothing you can do to stop it, the undead raven said. So enjoy the time you have left, for it's the last breath the living will take in this world. With that the raven fell to the ground dead. Fuck! I shouted. Chapter 87. The Night King wasn't like I had expected, at all. In the show he was but a pseudo-mindless monster leading an army of mindless drones, but this Night King was capable of critical thinking. Something I had failed to account all this time, but he had made a terrible mistake. He revealed one of his cards too soon. This, while beneficial, didn't make my fight against him any easier. In terms of combat abilities, I wasn't so sure if I was above him or on equal terms. Perhaps he was stronger, but that wasn't the part that had me on edge. Which really had me worried was that unlike him I couldn't control all my army as if they were an extension of my own body. My men make mistakes, they are humans, capable of fear, hate and doubt. His army didn't have any of that, they followed orders without hesitation. Without fear, without doubt. Because his will was their will, they would obey and carry out his demands no matter how hard and unreasonable they were. And to add a cherry on the top, his army would only grow in numbers. For every man the White Walkers killed, a new walker would rise. Fuck, I growled, punching the tree wheat the Night King Raven had been. But even in the hardest situations, victory is a possibility. I had to exploit what I knew about them, their weaknesses. If the Night King was smart now, it was pretty possible he was already aware of his one weakness, Valyrian steel. That and the fact that if he died every soldier would, so knowing that and putting myself in his shoes, I knew he would probably avoid direct confrontation if he wasn't sure of his victory. Which meant I had to weaken his army. The only known weaknesses that the White Walkers have shown were their vulnerability to weapons made of dragonglass or Valyrian steel, and fire. But their weaknesses weren't all equally effective. For example, in the show it was shown that a White Walker upon being stabbed by dragonglass, would make its body change as if freezing, slowly turning to ice from the point at which it was stabbed, causing the walker apparently a massive amount of pain. Depending on where the walker was stabbed, it will depend how long it takes the monster to die. Eventually the walker will succumb to the wound and begin to crack and fall apart, as its icy body shatters until there is nothing left but powder. On the other hand, Valyrian steel is exceptionally better at dealing with them, having the same effect, but working much rapidly, shattering White Walkers with a single blow regardless of where said blow is. But not only that, Valyrian steel is also the only metal capable of parrying White Walker weapons that are entirely made out of magic, making it so that normal steel can't handle them at all, because it shatters on contact with the magic weapon. Fire was the weakest weakness in part, killing the walkers but being the slowest method available, but the most exploitable. I already knew how to make small explosives that would set things on fire and or kill a man, and if I tweaked that right I could improve my explosive with dragonglass, making a pseudo-nail bomb, but instead of nail it would be an explosive packed with dragonglass shards to maximize damage dealt to the White Walkers. I need to make weapons for everyone, 2 wars to win, so little time, I muttered, knowing full well that if I didn't bring my game to this war I would lose, if I made one wrong move the others would win, and I would be the sole responsible of their victory. Because for all I knew my presence made their imminent threat massively higher than it originally was. If only I had more information about these fuckers, perhaps I could devise a plan to stop them. Holy shit, the children! And then it hit me, the children of the forest had created them, and one point they even controlled them, so they had to know more about them. How the fuck did forgot about them? But the last known children of the forest were beyond the wall with the three-eyed raven, and I had no way of getting there without dying. The Night King had proven that he had the ability to spy on me if I didn't play my cards right. With his undead ravens and animals he could hunt me down and kill me the moment I went beyond the wall. You know, if you really want to help humanity, this would be a great time to pitch in. I shouted and waited and nothing happened. What a surprise, a fucking god that does nothing, damn it. With anger I punched the tree with all my strength once more, which made some snow fall down on me, and considering all the shit of today that would have been my highlight, but something else caught my attention, the snow of it melted going from snow to water to steam. Okay, what the fuck? I looked around me noticing the snow around my feet started to do the same. This in turn threw me even more out of loop, turning my anger into confusion. Whatever I had done stopped immediately after, because soon the snow covered whatever I did melted. Three-eyed raven point of view. The Night King has changed, he had evolved. One night he was one thing, the next he was somehow an even bigger monster, coordinated, with conviction. It was my duty to try and stop him. I was humanity's watcher, but since he changed I had been trapped unable to fly. He knows I can't control animals that are dead or that are too far away from me, so he has killed every animal in the area, leaving me a mocking message behind. You are nothing now, stay here and watch humanity fall as you rot. He had cut my wings, and through the visions on the tree I couldn't contact people. All was left in the hands of that anomaly, Ronald Mormont, the boy that shouldn't have lived. He changed the song, he changed the history beyond comprehension, and it was now on his hands to win this. With that in mind, all I could do was watch him. I will go and see the promised one. It's all you can do now, Leaf sighed. The first thing I found once the magic of the tree took me to Ronald, was that he was angry, punching a tree, but what I saw after that was nothing I had seen before. It was as if his body heated so much that the snow turned into steam. He really is the promised one, I muttered. I had my doubts, but this was unbelievable. He had a connection to the light. What the fuck? Ronald muttered. With enough time, he could probably win this. But that was the main problem, wasn't it? Time we didn't have. Sooner than later the Night King would strike and he wasn't prepared to fight this version of it. He needed time to fully spread his wings, and only then he would vanquish the long night back to hell. I needed to buy him time, all the time I could. For each second the Night King wasn't onto him, he would grow like a wildfire. Chapter 88. I had melted the snow around me, the how. It was still unclear for me. Did the God of Light give me more than I thought he did? I was certain I didn't have any fire-related powers before. Shaking my head, I decided to focus on that later. I had to start mobilizing for the first war at hand. While my main enemy was certainly not what I had expected, the plan was still the same. I had to unite the 7 kingdoms, and fight the Forsaken with the living as one. And if I really did have a new power I wasn't aware of, I would learn to control it along the way. My king, John ran up to me, with a worried expression. You shouldn't be out here without any guards. I didn't know if felt insulted by that comment or flattered he already cared this much for me, maybe a bit of both, but for his sake, I will feel flattered. It all right, John, I chuckled. I just needed to blow off some steam, literally. I suppose that phrase isn't metaphorical with me anymore. Well, that's if I learn to replicate whatever I did today. Father wants to discuss our approach in the war, John informed me. Sure, lead the way, Lord Targaryen, I nodded, making John uncomfortable, and I can't blame him. All his life he thought himself to be a bastard, and now he is being forced into nobility. I still don't think it's wise to waste such title on me, John muttered, his head down. Stop selling yourself short, John, I sighed. You are an amazing guy, with a heart of gold, and considering how the 90% of people in this world is, you should feel worthy of that seat. For real. Do you really think people like Tywin deserve to rule? Yes, he is smart and very good at what he does, but he is also a piece of shit that would do anything in sacrifice to win. People like Ned and you are very, very rare. I don't think I'm worthy, but I will do my best. John smiled a bit less depressed. I suppose my words helped him a bit. You better, I playfully threatened him as we walked back to Winterfell, with my mind eventually drifting off back to my encounter with the Night King. So much shit to deal with in so little time. One thing was clear: as soon as I won this war, I would take 1 year off. I deserve that shit. Tywin Lannister point of view. Ronald Mormont has crossed the sea with more than half of his army. This was beneficial for us, with the Tyrells on our side, and with Ronald bringing just a part of his army, we had an army roughly the same size as Ronald's. Which meant things would play out depending on our strategy, and while I admit Ronald is possibly one of the best players of the game I had faced in decades, I was still better. I had experience. This wasn't my first war, nor it would be my last one. Father, Lady Olenna wants to discuss the wedding arrangements with you, Tyrion said, announcing his presence. The old rose, all she wants to do is waste my time, I sighed. Olenna was an annoying necessity for now, but if she thought I would indulge her because of that, she was utterly wrong. Well, I will let Lady Olenna know you are busy, Tyrion sighed. How is your sister taking all this? I inquired. Since the betrothal between Joffrey and Margaery was made, I haven't heard anything from her. She is against the idea of Lady Margaery and Joffrey marrying, Tyrion said, and frankly that information didn't surprise me at all. Sometimes I thought Cersei wanted for her children to die alone, that or she wanted to marry them. No one was ever good enough for them. It's a good thing her opinion is irrelevant for this decision. All my kids were a failure on their own way, stupid, reckless, naive, and immature. All I ever wanted to leave behind once I died was a legacy, something worth remembering and worth continuing, but that wasn't the case. I hadn't left anything behind worth continuing. If only Jaime would stop playing the idiot on shining armor, but there was still time. Time to change the pitifully disgusting legacy I had, and I would do it. I suppose, Tyrion nodded. Cersei Lannister point of view. Queen you shall be, until there comes another, younger and more beautiful, to cast you down and take all that you hold dear. The prophecy of all my children dying. I had to stop it at any cost. The prophecy said a younger queen would cast me down, alongside my children. It was simple, really. All I had to do was to avoid that date, was to kill any other queen and keep the crown. Margaery would have to die, for she aimed for the wrong position, and I would do anything to protect my children, anything. You seem tense, Jaime said, kissing me. Of course I am, I sighed. I'm the only one trying to protect our children. Jaime pouted for a second, before kissing one more time. Don't be like that, you know I love them. And would die for any of them. I smiled. I know. But I seriously doubt Joffrey marrying the Tyrell girl is that bad. Jaime laughed. It's not like he will die on his wedding night or something. Perhaps he will stop skinning cats alive and get a new hobby, fucking his wife. Jaime was lucky I loved him. He was so naive if he thought that wretched slut would live long enough to be called a queen. She is not worthy of Joffrey, I finally said. Let's face it, my lioness, no one will ever be worthy enough for you, Jaime laughed. Because no one is, I hissed at him. Alright, it seems someone needs to release some stress. Jaime smiled, whispering into ear those words in a seductive manner. As he licked my ear, I volunteer for the task, my queen. Jaime, my other half, my good half. Very well, I think you deserve some dessert. I smirked at him. Varys the Spider point of view. Illyrio was dead, and Ronald was here. What an unfortunate turn of events. If I had to take a guess, Ronald discovered my plots to try and manipulate him to support the young Griff. And if I had any chance for dialogue, Illyrio destroyed it. with his idiotic plan to destroy Ronald before he left Essos, and now with Illyrio gone the young bear would aim his claws at me. And in the end, I had but two options, dying or helping him, because if he spread the news that I was the one that freed Lord Stark and helped him marry Daenerys I would immediately get killed. He had me on checkmate. I had no idea if he knew this or not, or if he played knowing he would have me at his feet by the end of the game. But regardless of it, he had won, and for now I had to help him, at least until the young Griff was strong enough to claim the throne. Once again you win, I muttered, with a low chuckle. Once again the enigma of a young bear had vastly exceeded my expectations, but sooner or later he would slip, and I would be there to exploit that moment of weakness. Chapter 89. 3 weeks after my altercation with the Night King outside Winterfell, I decided it was time to start moving with my plans, with the first thing on the list being most of my army in the north. Dorne's army would be waiting for me close to the Freys. The life of the old man Frey was in the big scheme of things inconsequential. If he didn't piss me off by trying to charge me to pass through his castle to the other side, I would let him live, but I knew he would try and charge me. It wasn't a question of if, it was a question of how much. Well, I will deal with that when the time comes, I thought, as I discussed with Ned, Jon and Oberyn about how we would proceed. First I would have to deal with Stannis Baratheon. He was certainly a bump on my road that Tywin would use to weaken me down, so I had to play it smart, move with caution and strike without hesitation. After eliminating Stannis, erasing his sorry arse of the game once and for all, I would proceed with the next phase of my plan, economic destabilization. There were 3 main cores that kept the Lannisters in power. For one, until a few months ago they had the Iron Bank lending them money, but with the Iron Bank under my control they had lost that cow. The next key core was their reputation. The Lannisters were feared and respected among the houses of Westeros and the small people as the richest house in the Seven Kingdom, and while that was true at one point, it wasn't anymore. They were dirt poor now compared to other houses. Their gold mines had run dry years ago, reason why Tywin had been relying so much on the Iron Bank, but with the bank out of his hands, he was in a difficult situation. Fortunately for me, this was a core easy to destroy. All I had to do was spread rumors of them being poor, and little by little Tywin would lose hold of his reputation. That alone was enough to make his hold crumble, but I wanted to add a cherry on the top, a rumor to destabilize Tywin and his children. I would let the world know that Cersei is fucking her brother. I would spread the rumors far and wide, left and right, until every person in the kingdom knew of their relationship. While this fact was already known, making sure everybody knew it would shake their hold more, and would put in doubt the legitimacy of their rule even more. And last but not least, the last core keeping them in power was their allies. Well, one specifically. The Tyrells had recently joined the Lannisters, and I knew Tywin had them for more than their army or money. That man was smart, very smart. Because he had secured an alliance with the biggest food distributor in Westeros, food was essential in war times. A well-fed kingdom doesn't rebel against their rulers. Tywin knew they needed the small people under control. Should they rise because they were starving, he would lose the war. The food was also essential to keep their army obeying them. A starving soldier will forget about their oaths and where their loyalties lie with. In short, Tywin needed the Tyrells more than he would care to admit. Destroying the Tyrells would destroy their house of cards, creating a domino effect of chaos and anarchy. No food, no money, and no legitimate rulers. If I played my cards right, I would have Tywin in checkmate. That is a terrifyingly good plan, Oberyn muttered with a smile, clearly surprised with how far I was thinking. It's quite the plan, Ned nodded, but I knew he wasn't exactly happy with my tactic of spreading up rumors, thinking it wasn't honorable. The faster we win this, the faster we can face the long night as one. Jon, like his father, didn't like the spreading rumors tactic but cared more about humanity than the honor of how we won. I just hope we don't have to eliminate the Freys, Ned sighed. I think he is plotting something, but what I don't know. All right, then he is definitely plotting something, Oberyn chuckled. How do you know? Jon inquired, as I laughed knowing where Oberyn was going with this. Ned Stark is suspicious of a plot. Oberyn smirked. If he saw through that man. He was probably laughing like a cliché villain while rubbing his hands in an evil way or something. Ha, oh God, I laughed as I saw Lord Stark glare at Oberyn. Hey, no offense, it's just the North is so pure, the South is. Well, you have to deal with 3 plots before breakfast on a slow day. Oberyn chuckled. I'm still not sure how Ronald came to be so good seeing through them when he is from here. A gift that happens to be a curse, I sighed. With a northerner as a king, we might finally have a kingdom without plots, Jon added. That would be great, Ned smiled as he turned his gaze back to Oberyn. Keeping the north pure as you called it, is my intention. The south is nothing but corruption. On that, we can agree, Oberyn conceded. Well, let's rest today, we are leaving tomorrow, I announced, getting a chorus of ice on the table. Daenerys' point of view. Yunkai, the city I was currently attacking, also known as the Yellow City, it's one of the most prominent slavers' cities on the eastern coast of Slavers Bay in Essos. But they stood no chance, their pitiful defenses would crumble under my fist, and I would claim the city sooner or later. The city was ruled by the wise masters. Unlike Astapor where they mainly sell soldiers, Yunkai's main export is bed slaves, also known as sex slaves, which left them to buy their defenses, that at the moment were around 5,000 Sellsword soldiers. Compared to my 40,000 soldier army and 2 dragons, they stood no chance. Crow and Regal were almost big enough to be mounted. Nothing would stand in our way. Ronald would conquer the 7 kingdoms, while I would finish what he started in Essos, because we would do anything to ensure our children had no enemies. Missandei, pass me the towel. I was taking a relaxing bath with my babies, but it was time to get out, but something was wrong. Melisandre never takes this long to reply, Missandei. I must apologize, my queen. Missandei came with the towel, but your bears have captured a man trying to sneak here. Who would be so stupid as to try and sneak into my bathroom, when I'm taking a bath with my babies? Who? His name is Darion Harris, Missandei answered. Taking a deep breath, I ordered 2 of my servants to dress the babies and take them to the nursery that was filled with bears and ravens, that would die to protect them, and in the meantime I would deal with this sad attempt of an assassination. I stood in front of Dario, who had scratches on his abdomen and back. The bears really did a number on him. What are you doing here? No, let me rephrase that. Did you really think you could kill me? Oh dear Lord, no, Dario chuckled. If you open my bag you'll see I came here in peace. Then again, I should have just sent a raven. This happened to me because I wanted to surprise everyone. His bag, well, I suppose I could indulge that stupid request. Someone open his bag. I will, my queen, Yora said, taking the bag and opening it. His surprised expression told me that what he saw wasn't something he expected. What is it? I inquired. He brought the other captains with him, my queen, Yora answered. Their heads to be precise, Dario chuckled. I'm not a stupid man, I know I can't beat you, and frankly your cause is not that bad, so I killed the other 2 that didn't want to support your cause. I see, but you still tried to sneak into my chambers, where me and my children were taking a bath. I smiled coldly. For today, sleep on a cell. Perhaps tomorrow I will feel generous and let you bend the knee, or I might still be angry and demand your head, who knows, so take this time and pray to your gods. With that I left the room, leaving a slightly shocked and amused Dario behind. Chapter 90. With my army finally on the north, it was time to start moving south. It was time to destabilize the Lannisters. My ravens would take care of that. 100 of them would spread far and wide, dropping the information I wanted about my enemies, creating a social chaos. In the meantime, I would move my entire focus on 2 tasks, 1 defeating Stannis, 2 destroying the Tyrells. Without Stannis things would go a bit easier for me and I would get access to a nearly endless supply of dragonglass, and without the Tyrells, the kingdom would have no food. No food means no passive little people. No passive little people mean riots, and with the riots comes my attack. It will take us a month to get to the Frey's Bridge, Ned informed, which brought me back to something I had yet to decide, what to do with the old man Frey. I knew for a fact he would not let me pass for free. He was too greedy to allow that. He might fear me, but his greed completely overrides any other emotion, and while his death was a guaranteed fact, the when was the question. Depending of how greedy he tried to be, it would depend or whether I focus on destroying his house first or leave him for last. In the great scheme of things he inconsequential. He has no army to pose a threat, nor the wits to outwit me. He was a bug waiting to be squished on. Well, 1 month before this war starts, I nodded as I looked ahead of the road deep in thought. Things were finally coming into place. The end of this wretched game was coming, and I would ensure it was destroyed for good, for my family, for my people. I would win. But none of that mattered if I didn't win the final war, the fight against the others. Only then, the world would be safe. Young Griff point of view. Cold, fear, despair, there was nothing but that beyond the wall, and I had doomed my army to this destiny. That was all I could think of as laid on the floor, seeing the monster that had decimated my army alone. Our weapons were useless, our numbers were useless, nothing we did made a difference. In the end we were a page on a book no one will ever read. Life is so fragile, so pathetic, the monster muttered, his blue eyes glowing with nothing but a cold feeling of death. What are you? I inquired, focusing really hard on not passing out, blood loss already affecting me. I am the end. As his response sent a shiver down my spine, I started to see my men, the men that had come with me, the men I had killed on this trip by bringing them here, rise from the ground, their bodies coming back to life. That monster pretended to desecrate them even after death. Someone will stop you, I know it. I chuckled as I felt my life starting to slowly fade away. I'm not the prince that was promised, that much is for sure now, but the real one will end this darkness. Light, so pathetic, light thinks it travels faster than anything, but it is wrong. No matter how fast light travels, it finds the darkness has always got there first, and is waiting for it, the monster said with a cold, chilling tone as he approached me. Before light, before life, before creation, before everything, there was nothing but darkness, and I will bring back the world to its original state. Now begone, fake dragon. With that the monster stabbed my heart, and as the pain spread through my body I felt a cold, chilling sensation taking over, and I knew he was going to do the same he did with my men. Fuck you, I muttered with my last breath of freedom, with my last breath as a living man. Tywin Lannister point of view. Ronald and Stannis, the last two contenders for the throne. Ronald represented a bigger threat in a military point of view, but on the other hand Stannis had the bigger claim. If I killed one, the other would rise from the ashes stronger. Why are we destroying them? Cersei inquired angrily, sitting beside Tyrion much to her dismay. The opportunity of defeating our enemies will be provided by the enemy itself, I said calmly. We are lions, we hunt, and to hunt means we wait for the right moment to strike, not a moment after, not a moment before. So we do nothing? Cersei growled, they are trying to take our throne and we do nothing? Behave, or I will remind you why you fear me, child, I said with a cold glare that shut the idiot of a daughter I have. All warfare is based on deception. Hence why when able to attack, we must seem unable. When moving our forces, we must seem defeated. When we are near, we must make the enemy believe we are far away. And when far away, we must make them believe we are near. And when they expect us to attack like now, we must bid our time and strike when they least expect it. So shut your mouth and let me do what I do best. The question is, who should we eliminate first? Tyrion inquired. Ronald or Stannis? They both represent a threat, but one is dragons. When the opportunity to attack arises, I will let you know, I informed Tyrion. For now we had to plan every aspect of this war, from how to kill their soldiers to how to kill a dragon, only then we would move. Peter Baelish point of view. Ronald Mormont, a brat that had outgrown everyone's expectations, he went from a small lord to the biggest threat to the Iron Throne, and in all honesty I would ally myself with him. If it wasn't for the fact that Ned Stark on his side, I would die very fast. I betrayed him, but who would have known all this would happen? Too bad, killing Ronald and marrying his queen and finally becoming king would be considerably easier than dealing with the Lannister. God knows Cersei would eat me alive. So unfortunately for Ronald, I couldn't use him, and he would have to die because of it. With the Freys on my side I would eliminate that thorn on my plans and kill him. My plan was simple. The Freys would invite Ronald and his small council to dinner, and because the guest rulers forbade them from bringing weapons inside another's house, they would be defenseless. Then the Freys would strike, killing them. Happy ending for all. I can't wait for that old wolf and stupid bear to die, I chuckled. Too bad the Freys will have to kill Oberyn too. The Martells will not be happy. An idiot he is. Stop him we will. Yes, Unbeknownst to Peter Baelish, an incredibly wise raven was spying on him, and knew all about his plans. Walder Frey point of view. Peter Baelish had offered me something I couldn't resist: money, power and lands. And I would follow our plan unless the young bear offered me something better. I had grandkids, and he had a son and a daughter. If he agreed to marry my grandkids to his children I would help him. After all, a Frey would rule if that happened. But if he didn't accept my proposal, he would die and his crusade would come to an end. I hope for his sake he accepts. But either way I would get what I want. I always do, and always will. Prepare a feast. The young bear is coming and we must be ready. I smiled, ordering my men to be ready to join him or kill him. This marks the end of Part 18 of the story Game of Thrones, The Prideful One. Thank you for listening. Please like the video and hit the subscribe button to listen more. Hit the bell icon to get notified of all the new content uploaded to the channel ASAP.